Where every keystroke left a trace and every screen glowed with secrets, Ezra Kane was a ghost in the machine. Known online as Bloodhound, he was a detective who hunted murderers not in alleyways but in data streams, forums, and encrypted chats. His office was a cluttered apartment in Chicago, lined with monitors, cooling fans humming like a chorus of mechanical monks. Ezra didn't carry a badge or a gun, just a keyboard, a knack for patterns, and an obsession with justice. Ezra's latest case began with a tip on a dark web forum called Red Veil, a cesspool of anonymous users trading everything from drugs to hitman services. A user, Grim Tango, had posted a cryptic message. 3 down, 2 to go, Chicago weeps. Attached was a grainy photo of a knife, blood crusted on its edge, and coordinates pointing to a derelict warehouse on Chicago's south side. The post had been deleted within minutes, but Ezra's bots crawling the underbelly of the internet had snagged a screenshot. He cross-referenced the coordinates with local news. 3 bodies had been found in Chicago over the past month, 2 men and a woman, all stabbed, no suspects. The police were stumped, their press releases vague. Ezra, however, saw a thread. He pulled up the victims' digital footprints, social media, bank records, even fitness tracker data leaked on the dark web. All 3 had visited a specific coffee shop, Bean and Bite, in the Loop. Coincidence? Maybe. But Ezra didn't believe in coincidences. He donned a VPN mask, cloaking his IP, and logged into Red Veil as Shade Wraith, a persona he'd cultivated for years. He posted a bait thread. Heard Chicago's got a new artist, Knives and Blood. Anyone got details? Within hours, Grim Tango bit. Artist? Call it poetry. 2 more stanzas left. Ezra's pulse quickened. He traced Grim Tango's connection through layers of proxies, narrowing it to a public Wi-Fi hub at Surprise, Bean and Bite. Ezra wasn't a field guy. His knees shook at the thought of leaving his screens, but the coffee shop was a lead he couldn't ignore. He grabbed a burner phone, a baseball cap, and headed out, blending into Chicago's grey drizzle. Bean and Bite was a hipster haunt, exposed brick, overpriced lattes, and a clientele glued to laptops. Ezra ordered a black coffee, sat by the window, and opened his laptop, running a packet sniffer to monitor the Wi-Fi network. Every device that connected was a suspect. Hours passed. His screen flagged a device with an encrypted VPN, its traffic bouncing through servers in Russia and Singapore. Whoever it was, they were careful. Ezra's software couldn't crack the encryption, but he noticed the device connected daily at 3 p.m. He started visiting the shop, observing. A barista with a nose ring, a guy in a hoodie typing furiously, a woman in a suit, always on her phone. Any of them could be Grim Tango. Back home, Ezra dug deeper. He hacked into Bean and Bite's security cameras. Child's play for someone who'd breached Pentagon subcontractors for fun as a teen. Footage showed the victims, each visiting the shop days before their deaths, but no clear suspect emerged. Frustrated, he returned to Red Veil, where Grim Tango had posted again, 4th verse sung. 1 left. Catch me if you can, Bloodhound. Ezra froze. The killer knew his alias. The 4th victim hit the news the next morning, a tech CEO stabbed in his penthouse. Ezra's stomach churned. Grim Tango was taunting him, escalating. He analyzed the CEO's digital trail, emails, ex-posts, even his smart fridge's logs. The CEO had tweeted about Bean and Bite a week prior, praising their cold brew. Ezra's theory solidified. The killer was targeting people linked to the coffee shop, possibly scraping social media for victims. Ezra needed to predict the 5th target. He wrote a script to scrape X for recent posts mentioning Bean and Bite. Hundreds of hits, but one stood out. A local journalist, Mia Torres, who'd posted, "Best latte at Bean and Bite, my daily ritual." Her profile was public, her routine predictable. If Grim Tango was watching, she was next. Ezra faced a dilemma. Contacting Mia directly risked exposing himself. Tipping off the police anonymously might not be fast enough. He compromised, sending Mia an encrypted email from a throwaway account. "You're in danger. Avoid Bean and Bite. Trust me." He hoped it was enough. Meanwhile, he set a trap. Using Red Veil, he posted as Shade Wraith. "Grim Tango, you're sloppy. I know your hunting ground. Meet me at the warehouse midnight, or I leak your IPA bluff." Ezra hadn't cracked Grim Tango's proxies, but he banked on the killer's ego. He rigged the warehouse with cheap webcams streaming to his laptop and alerted the police with an anonymous tip about suspicious activity. Midnight came. Ezra watched the feed from his apartment, heart pounding. A figure appeared, hooded, carrying a knife. Grim Tango. But the figure wasn't alone. A second person, Mia Torres, stumbled into frame, blindfolded, hands bound. Ezra cursed. She hadn't heeded his warning. Grim Tango had escalated to kidnapping. The police were en route, but minutes away. Ezra hacked the warehouse's old sprinkler system, triggering it remotely. Water sprayed, startling Grim Tango, who slipped, dropping the knife. Mia, hearing the commotion, bolted blindly. Ezra typed furiously, looping the warehouse's lights to flash, disorienting the killer further. Sirens wailed. Grim Tango fled, but not before Ezra's cameras caught a partial face, enough for facial recognition. He ran the image through a black market database, matching it to a name. Lucas Reed, a former barista at Bean and Bite fired for stalking customers. Reed's digital trail was meticulous, his VPNs near impenetrable, but Ezra had his real-world identity. The police arrested Reed at his apartment, finding knives matching the murder weapons. Mia, shaken but alive, gave a statement. Ezra watched the news, anonymous as ever. Red Veil buzzed with chatter about Bloodhound's takedown, some calling him a hero, others a snitch. He didn't care. 4 families had closure. 1 life was saved. Ezra leaned back, sipping cold coffee. His screens glowed with new alerts. Another case, another killer. The internet never slept, and neither did he. Bloodhound was already hunting. In the neon-lit underbelly of New Arcadia, Mara Vex was a legend. Known as the 1,000-cut queen, she'd pulled off 1,000 heists by age 30. Jewels, data, even the occasional heart. Her hands were quick, her conscience slow, and her rap sheet longer than the city's skyline. But after a botched job left her bleeding out in an alley, betrayed by her crew, Mara faced a choice: rot in a cell or flip her life upside down. She chose the latter. A deal with a grizzled detective named Holt got her out of cuffs and into a badge. Mara Vex, the criminal, was dead. Mara Vex, private detective, was born. Her first case, a string of bizarre crimes tied to New Arcadia's hair salons. Someone was targeting the city's elite stylists, sabotaging their shops, stealing their client lists, and, in one gruesome case, shaving a politician's head bald during a blackout. The press dubbed the culprit the sheer phantom. The police were stumped. Holt, sensing Mara's knack for thinking like a crook, threw her the file. Mara hit the streets, her old instincts humming. She started at Razor's Edge, a high-end salon where the last attack went down. The owner, a wiry man named Claude, was sweating bullets. "They took my appointment book," he stammered. "My VIPs, gone." Mara noticed a faint chemical scent in the air, not quite hairspray. She pocketed a vial of spilled dye for analysis. Posing as a client, Mara booked cuts at every major salon, watching, listening. She noticed patterns. The attacks hit only stylists who'd trained under a mysterious figure named Madame Coiffure, a reclusive hairdressing guru. Mara's gut screamed setup. She dug deeper, tapping old criminal contacts. A fence named Sticky Pete whispered about a black market trade in salon secrets, formulas, client dirt, even patented shears. The trail led to a derelict barbershop in the city's fringes. Inside, Mara found a hidden lab, vats of experimental hair dyes, stolen client files, and a wall of photos, every targeted stylist. At the centre was Madame Coiffure herself, a statuesque woman with a silver bob and eyes like steel. "You're the 1,000-cut queen," she purred, recognizing Mara. "Join me. We could own this city's secrets." Mara played along, coaxing the truth. Madame Coiffure was no mere hairdresser. She was a mastermind, using her salons as fronts to blackmail clients and sell their secrets. Her phantom attacks were a cover to eliminate loyalists who'd grown uneasy, but Mara had recorded every word. As Madame lunged with a pair of razor-sharp shears, Mara dodged, her old reflexes kicking in. A quick grapple, a cuff, and Madame was down. The case broke wide open. Madame's network collapsed. Her goons rounded up. The salons reopened, and Mara's name hit the headlines, not as a criminal, but as the detective who'd cracked the sheer phantom. Holt grunted approval. "Not bad, Vex. Keep that nose." In the neon-lit sprawl of New Avalon, where skyscrapers cast long shadows over streets that never sleep, Marcus Kane lived a life split between darkness and dawn. By night, he was the immovable force at the door of the Black Orchid, the city's most notorious nightclub. By morning, he traded his black jacket for the worn leather seat of his taxi, ferrying the city's early risers through a maze of concrete and ambition. But Marcus had a third life, one that thrived in the cracks between his shifts, a hunter of those who preyed on the city's soul. At 6 feet 4 inches, with a boxer's build and eyes that missed nothing, Marcus was a fixture at the Black Orchid. The club pulsed with bass and desperation, a magnet for the wealthy, the reckless, and the dangerous. His job was simple: keep the chaos contained. He'd toss out drunks, intimidate wannabe gangsters, and spot trouble before it sparked. But Marcus saw more than fights and fake IDs. He noticed patterns, faces that lingered too long, hands that moved too quick. The club was a crossroads for the city's underbelly, and Marcus had a knack for reading its currents. Tonight, the air was thick with humidity and tension. A group of men in tailored suits lingered near the VIP section, their laughter too sharp, their eyes too cold. Marcus clocked them the moment they walked in. One, a wiry guy with a snake tattoo curling up his neck, kept scanning the crowd like a predator. Marcus leaned against the wall, arms crossed, his presence a silent warning. When Snake Tattoo slipped into the bathroom with a nervous-looking kid in tow, Marcus followed. Inside, the kid, barely 18, with a backpack slung over one shoulder, was handing over a wad of cash. Snake Tattoo pocketed it, passing back a small plastic bag. Marcus didn't hesitate. He grabbed Snake Tattoo by the collar, slammed him against the tiled wall, and snatched the bag. Cocaine. The kid bolted, but Marcus let him go. Kids like that were pawns. Snake Tattoo was the real problem. "Who's your supplier?" Marcus growled, his voice low but sharp enough to cut through the club's distant thrum. Snake Tattoo sneered. "You're just a bouncer, man. Stay in your lane." Marcus tightened his grip, lifting the guy an inch off the ground. Wrong answer. 10 minutes later, Snake Tattoo was out cold in the alley, zip-tied and left for the cops. Marcus had his name, Victor, and a lead, a warehouse by the docks where Victor's crew moved product. He pocketed the info, knowing his night shift was only the beginning. At 5 a.m., Marcus shed his bouncer persona and slid into his taxi, a beat-up Crown Vic with a meter that ticked like a heartbeat. The city was different at this hour, quieter but no less alive. He picked up fares, bleary-eyed baristas, suits rushing to early flights, and the occasional straggler from the night before. But Marcus wasn't just driving. He was listening, watching, piecing together the city's secrets. His first fare was a woman in a red dress, mascara streaked, clutching a purse like it held her life. She gave an address near the docks, her voice shaky. Marcus glanced at her in the rear view. "Rough night?" She nodded, avoiding his eyes. "Just get me home." He drove, but his mind was on Victor's warehouse. The docks were a hive of crime, smuggling, drugs, worse. When the woman's destination turned out to be a run-down apartment block a block from the warehouse, Marcus's instincts flared. He handed her his card. "You ever need a ride or help, call me." She hesitated, then took it. "Thanks." By noon, Marcus was back in his one-room apartment, a Spartan space with a punching bag in the corner and a laptop on a folding table. He didn't sleep much. Instead, he cross-referenced Victor's name with police reports and ex-posts, building a map of the crew's operations. The warehouse was a hub, but there was a bigger player, someone called the Broker, a ghost who ran half the city's rackets. Marcus needed proof, something to bring the whole network down. That evening before his bouncer shift, Marcus drove to the docks. He parked his taxi a block from the warehouse, swapping his driver's cap for a black hoodie. The place was a fortress of rust and steel, guarded by two thugs with earpieces. Marcus crouched behind a stack of crates, watching. A black SUV pulled up, and a man in a long coat stepped out. The Broker? No, too young. But the way the guards stiffened told Marcus this guy was important. He snapped photos with his phone, catching the man's face and the SUV's plates. Then, movement, a figure slipping out of the warehouse's side door. It was the woman from his taxi, red dress swapped for jeans and a hoodie. She glanced around, then hurried toward the water. Marcus followed, silent as a shadow. She stopped at the edge of a pier, pulling a burner phone from her pocket. Marcus crept closer, catching fragments of her whispered call. "Victor's down. They're spooked. I can get the ledger, but I need out." Ledger, that was the key. Names, dates, deals. Enough to gut the Broker's empire. But before Marcus could move, a hand clamped over his shoulder. One of the warehouse guards, a hulking guy with a scar across his cheek. "Wrong place, wrong time," Scar growled, raising a fist. Marcus ducked, driving an elbow into Scar's gut. The guard staggered, but his partner was already charging. Marcus fought like a man possessed, his fists precise, his movements honed from years of breaking up bar fights, and worse. He left both guards unconscious, but the woman was gone, her phone abandoned on the pier. Back at the Black Orchid, Marcus worked the door, his mind racing. The woman was a loose thread, maybe an informant, maybe a traitor. Either way, she was in danger. At 3 a.m., his phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, Pier 17, midnight, bring backup. He didn't trust it, but he couldn't ignore it. When his shift ended, Marcus drove to Pier 17, his .38 tucked under his jacket. The pier was deserted, the air heavy with salt and diesel. Then a figure stepped from the shadows, the woman, bruised but alive, holding a battered notebook. "The ledger," she said, voice trembling. "It's everything, but they're coming." Headlights flared. Two SUVs screeched to a stop, disgorging men with guns. Marcus shoved the woman behind a crate, drawing his revolver. "Stay down." The fight was brutal, a blur of gunfire and fists. Marcus moved like a force of nature, dropping 3 men before a bullet grazed his shoulder. Pain seared, but he didn't stop. The woman screamed, firing a pistol she'd pulled from her jacket. Together they held the line until sirens wailed in the distance. When the cops arrived, they found Marcus bleeding but standing, the ledger in his hand, and 6 of the Broker's men cuffed or down. The woman vanished into the night, her part in the story over. Marcus didn't chase her. Some debts didn't need collecting. Days later, the ledger cracked the Broker's network wide open. Arrests rolled through New Avalon, and Marcus's name stayed out of it, just the way he liked. He was back at the Black Orchid, checking IDs, watching the crowd. Come morning, he'd be in his taxi, driving through a city a little cleaner, a little safer. Marcus Kane didn't wear a badge or a cape. He was just a man who saw the cracks in the world and refused to let them widen. Night or day, he'd be there, holding the line.